History, Form 1, Second Midterm, Chapter 3, page number 21 to 30, Ancient Civilization in the World. Lesson Objectives: Learning about origin of civilization and transformation from a rural society to an urban society. Learning about extension of civilization and world heritages. To make them understand about Mesopotamian civilization. To learn about Indus River Valley civilization. To learn about Egyptian civilization. Learning about origin of civilization and transformation from a rural society to an urban society. The man got used to forming villages and lived in them from the ancient time. People who lived in those villages for a long time made a progress further. Some villagers became wealthy as a result of farming and rearing animals. But some other villagers had to do their farming in infertile plots of lands, for which getting water facility was difficult. Therefore, they were considered the poor who lived in the same villages due to lack of harvest. This is how two divisions in the society as rich and poor originated. Sometimes later, the rich and their relatives started living separately from these villages. Such places which consisted of houses made of stones instead of clay and metal. Well-constructed streets, moats, walls and temples for worshipping were called cities. These rich villages were thereafter called citizens. Hereafter they never did farming and rearing animals. Instead, the poor villagers cultivate the land that belongs to the rich. But much of the harvest out of it was taken by wealthy people who live in the cities. A civilization means such kind of cities and the citizens who live in them. A city was larger than a village. These citizens practiced writing scripts. There was a group of citizens to rule the cities. The people who lived in the cities built religious places. They were engaged in trading with distant country. Therefore, these basic characteristics help understand what a civilization is. Thus, people who lived in various parts of the world in different eras built their own civilization. Mesopotamian civilization, Nile River Valley civilization, Indus River Valley civilization and Hoang Ho civilization were some of the oldest of them. It is important for us to learn about civilizations because various things which were produced by those who lived then are useful for our lives even today. People who lived in all civilizations bestowed many different things to the world. In mathematics, we learn that a circle has 360 degrees. We know that there are 60 seconds for a minute and 60 minutes for an hour. This was taught to us by the mathematician who lived in the ancient Mesopotamian civilization. People who lived in the Hoang Ho civilization introduced the gunpowder, compass, paper, and the printing machine to the world for the first time. All of these are immensely useful for us today. For the first time, a rubber ball was produced by the people who lived in the Maya civilization. Rubber is used to produce slippers that we wear as well as tires in the airplanes. Some information about several civilizations should be studied to understand what a civilization is. We have described some interesting information about Mesopotamian civilization, Egyptian civilization, and the Indus River Valley civilization below. A civilization is an instant which reflects man's progress. You too should be determined to serve the country by learning how those who lived in the ancient civilizations invented things to make our life easy and comfortable. Mesopotamian civilization. This civilization developed in the river valley of Euphrates and Tigris. The area where the two rivers existed belongs to Iraq at present. Mesopotamian means the country in between two rivers. Mesopotamia is located in between the two rivers mentioned above. This civilization existed between 3100 to 2900 BC, that is 5000 years ago. The farmers who belonged to the Mesopotamian civilization and who lived around the main cities were engaged in agriculture and animal husbandry. As there was not enough water in those areas, they carried water through canals to their agricultural lands. They set the ground suitable for farming with the help of the animals. They used plucked made of iron and mammoths made of stones. They cultivated grains, fruits and vegetables. Wheat and barley were two main types of grains that they grew. Mesopotamian people considered nature to be God and worshipped it. The rain, wind, and floods were thus worshipped. They thought that they lived to please such gods who belonged to nature. The leader of the group of gods was a god called Anu. The god of earth was called Enki. The god Enlil was worshipped as the god of the wind and farming. There was a good god for each and every city in Mesopotamia. The word ziggurat was used for the temples which were built to worship gods. The priests in those temples held a respectable position in the Mesopotamian society. The Mesopotamian people were clever at trade, traveling in small ships in rivers. Some items including food and drink were carried on these ships. The Assyrians who lived in the northern part of Mesopotamia were good traders. They did their trading across the land. They were engaged in trading by carrying the commodities on the back of donkeys. They were called caravans. Mesopotamian society. Mesopotamian society was divided into four categories: priest, people who represented the higher classes, people who represented the lower classes, and slaves. Priests were the most powerful in the Mesopotamian society. They act as doctors in addition to doing their religious activities. Priests shaved their heads. They wore a cloak made of sheep skin. It was a custom of men and women who belonged to the highest classes to wear golden jewelry. Men grew their hair long. They grew a long beard. Women wore their clothes covering one shoulder. They too had long hair. People who represented the lower classes did not live a luxurious lifestyle, but they lived in their houses comfortably. They worked hard. They were paid for their work. The clothes and the jewelries they wore were not valuable. Mesopotamian scripts. The Mesopotamians invented the oldest system of scripts in the world. These scripts are called cuneiform scripts. Konya scripts were written on slabs made of clay. The scripts were written on the wet clay slab with the sharpened piece of stick. The Mesopotamian writing system was similar to drawing figures at the very beginning. Later on, it developed into a system of scripts. Various things had been written on these clay slabs, mainly descriptions related to the trade affairs. An epic story had been written about a person called Gilgamesh who lived in Mesopotamia in Konya scripts. It is considered the oldest literary work in the world. Thought it was difficult to written on clay slabs, Mesopotamians did it in a clever way. They sent some letters written on clay slab to the relevant person, enclosing them in envelopes made of clay. There remains an old document of laws made by a ruler called Hammurabi who ruled Mesopotamia. It is the oldest law book in the world. Indus River Valley Civilization. This civilization developed in the valley of Indus River, which flows across the northwestern region in India. Today, this region belongs to Afghanistan, Pakistan, and to the northwestern part of India. This civilization reached its highest development between 2600 and 1990 BC. Mohenjo-daro and Harappa were two main cities of this civilization. Around 5 million people had lived in all the cities at its highest development time. People who lived in Indus River Valley civilization used metal such as copper, bronze, lead, and tin. They lived in houses made of burnt clay bricks. There was a very advanced system of water pipes. Their cities were well planned. Indus River people invented a system of signs that could be used as scripts. There were four main cities that belonged to Indus River Valley civilization. They were Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, Dholavira, and Kalibangan. All of them were well-planned cities. This picture shows the ruins of such city which was found in archaeological excavations. It is considered that this is a picture of a priest who lived in a city during Indus River Valley civilization. This was found in the river valley. The strap on the forehead of this sculpture is a sign which indicates that he was a respectable person. Half-closed eyes of the person in this sculpture show that he is in meditative position. It further confirms that the person in the sculpture was priest. People who lived in the city of Indus River Valley civilization had a methodically constructed system of gutters, wells and sewage. The well-constructed roads in the ancient cities of Indus River Valley civilization can be considered as evidence for their transport. This picture shows a dummy of a cart used for transportation. This must have been a toy cart used for play. Egyptian civilization. This civilization developed in the lower part of the area of Valley of Nile River, which flows across the African continent in 3100 BC. Since this region belongs to present-day Egypt, it is called by the same name. This civilization was ruled by a dynasty called Pharaohs for a long time. The main livelihood of the people who lived in Egyptian civilization was agriculture. Therefore, they were able to create an advanced irrigation system. Therefore, the greatest legacy they bestowed to the world is the pyramids. The dead bodies of pharaohs were deposited in pyramids. This picture shows the pyramids which have been constructed in a place named Giza, some distance away from Cairo, the capital of Egypt. The dead bodies of the pharaohs, kings, and their queens are laid in them. The oldest pyramids in Egypt were constructed between 2630 to 2611 BC. The pyramid in Giza is considered to be one of the seven wonders of the world. Nefer Nefertiti Queen was the consort of the one of Para kings called Akhenaten. She lived in 1370 to 1330 BC. The sculpture of her bust must have been created while she was alive. She ruled Egypt for a short time period after the death of King Akhenaten. Queen Nefertiti was one of the most beautiful women who lived in the ancient time. Another important thing that they invented was scripts. These scripts were designed by combining figures of animals and various items. Those scripts are called the Egyptian pictograms. The scholar who lived in the Egyptian civilization design a set of symbols which could be used for writing purposes. These symbols had been designed from pictures of various items used and seen in their day-to-day life. They are called the Egyptian pictograms. This picture shows a mummy of a chieftain who belonged to the Egyptian civilization. People who lived in the Egyptian civilization introduced the method of mummifying to preserve the dead bodies for a long time. And in the other picture shows the golden mask which was placed on the face of the mummy of King Tutankhamun, who lived between 1332 to 1323 BC. So, in this lesson, you got some information about several civilizations and understand what a civilization is.